Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and this is the Brooks Ghost 16, the update to arguably one of the most popular, best-selling shoes, running shoes on the planet. Now, Brooks has made some changes to this workhorse daily training shoe. Are they going to be the kind of changes that diehard Ghost fans are going to love or not love? We'll get into all of that in this video. Now, myself, Nick and Kieran have all got this shoe. We've done some initial running in it. First, we'll get you into what's new from the Ghost 15, and then we'll get you into some initial running thoughts and how we've been finding the Brooks Ghost 16. So here's the key details you need to know about the Brooks Ghost 16. Brooks sticks to the same price as the Ghost 15 for the 16, both in the UK and the US, so it remains at the slightly more affordable end of the daily trainer market. Weight-wise, Brooks quotes 280 grams for the 16 to suggest it comes in slightly lighter than the 15. Our UK size 8 weighed in at 265 grams. In terms of drop, you're getting a shoe with a 12mm one and some minor changes in the stack height departments. The upper remains a mesh one, but is now designed to offer enhanced stretch and structure. But it's the midsole where the headline change lies, with Brooks swapping its DNA Loft V2 cushioning technology for the DNA Loft V3 one that features in the Brooks Glycerin 21. On the outsole, Brooks has introduced its Rotac rubber one, which also appeared on the Glycerin 21 and uses a mix of rubber and recycled silica to keep that outsole both light and durable. So in terms of fit, I've got my Ghost 16 in a UK size 8. That's my typical running shoe size. I've also got it in the medium fit width option. Now, a bit like the Ghost 15, you do have options in terms of going something a little bit more narrow in terms of that fit or going a little bit wider to give it the biggest scope to work for the, the largest amount of runners. Now, what I was saying when I first put it on, it definitely felt a little bit on the snug side for me. It wasn't an issue on the run itself. I think the space up front of the toes was generally fine, but it did feel a little bit tight placed, maybe going a bit further back into the middle of this shoe. There is a lot of padding in general on the Ghost 16, whether it's kind of the heel collar, whether it's at the tongue as well. For that hour run, it felt fine, but I would be interested to see how it would feel over a longer distance, whether I'd have any issues from that point of view. So there may be an argument to go half size up, maybe looking at a different width fit option for me and my kind of pretty skinny feet. I think the medium fit should work fine for me in general, but there may be, as I said, I'd like to see how it kind of pans out over more testing. But yeah, a little bit on the snug side for me. My usual size, it wasn't an issue or didn't pose any issues in the hour run I did. But I'm interested to see what it's like when I've done a bit more running in it and whether those kind of tighter elements I found in the shoe so far in that first run will kind of replicate itself over longer distances.
The fit was all good for me in my normal running shoe size with the Brooks Ghost 16. I've got a UK 9 here, which is a US 10. That's the size I've used across the years in the Ghost and the Glycerin. Sometimes I have a bit more of a up and down fit with actually Brooks' speed shoes, which sometimes come a bit big on me, but with the Ghost, my normal size is always really good. Enough room in the toe box, good hold around the heel and midfoot of all the padding you have here. There's a lot of padding at the back. I'd say that's not my absolute preference. I prefer slightly less in the way it's positioned in terms of a little bit of Achilles irritation on the first run, but nothing bad at all really. Like, it's not something I noticed the next day. Got a very structured heel counter as well. That's really firm around there, so that's something that's quite noticeable, but again, wasn't a problem for me really on the run. But if you find, very stiff heels with lots of padding do irritate your Achilles occasionally, I think this is a shoe that might do that, have the potential to do that, but overall I was happy in my normal size.
So when it comes to fit, I've run in a UK 8.5, which is my regular Brooks running shoe size. That's a US 9.5, and overall I found the fit to be really good in this shoe. So if I talk you through the fittings of what's going on here, I've got decent room up front in the toe box. There's about a thumb's width, which is what you really want. Actually, there's quite a lot of flex because of the way the uppers work. You can kind of definitely wiggle your toes. There's enough room across the top of the toe box. There's enough room at the end of the toe box, and then moving back into this kind of toe knuckle area, which sometimes that's where fits can be a bit tricky. Again, these uppers work really nicely. There is enough flex. I don't feel cramped. It's a very roomy feeling shoe as a result of that. I got good lockdown across the midfoot from the lacing here. You've obviously got these big, thick, padded tongues that bring a bit of plush comfort as well, take out any lace pinch. And then moving into the heel collars, you've got a nice thick padded heel collar. I'd say that's kind of thicker than most. It's at the sort of thicker end. It's got like a roll top, which I think holds the heel really nicely. And again, I had no slipping from the heel at all. It doesn't come up too high, so I had no problems from the base of the Achilles either. And overall, I found this kind of fit was, just really sort of comfy, nice and disappearing, exactly what you would want in a clip-along shoe.
Just heading out to do first run in the Brooks Ghost 16. I've got my Sunday long run on the plan. Going to do about 90 minutes, something like that, in the forest, which should be nice. The trails are pretty dry and hard now, so it should be all good in road shoes, and there's some road sections there as well. Plan is to run pretty easy, maybe pick up in the second half. Most of the first half's uphill, the second half's mostly downhill. And looking forward to running in the shoe. I was a big fan of the Brooks Glycerin 21. I am a big fan of the Brooks Glycerin 21, which obviously uses this DNA Loft V3 foam. It's a foam we've been waiting to come to the Ghost, so we'll see how it feels today with a slightly different setup you have on the Ghost, which is, I think, slightly lower stack and certainly a higher drop than the Glycerin. Anyway, looking forward to it. So it was an enjoyable first run of the shoe in the end. It ended up being a lot muddier than I expected. So for the most part, the forest was nice and dry as I expected, and I was just pounding along nice dry trails, but there was basically quite a long swampy section at the back end, at the top end of the forest, which did see me coming unstuck. This is not a shoe designed for that. I've had to actually clean it since because it got pretty disgusting and I fell over once, but for the most part, I'd say of the 21k, like 19k was on nice hard trails and roads, and the shoe felt good on that. Like, there's definitely a slight step down in comfort compared to the Glycerin under the forefoot, I would say, because it's a lower stack, higher drop, but it is still a comfortable shoe, and it's a nice lightweight feeling shoe, and it's definitely a nicer feel than I got from the last few generations of the Ghost. I've really wanted DNA Loft V3 in the Ghost for a while. I like this foam a lot. Like, it's not the cushiest foam or the softest foam in the world, but it's got a pleasant firmness to it where it's not at all harsh. The firmness turns into resilience and feels good over the course of a long run like yesterday, where you're getting a nice base to push against, a little bit of bounce, a little bit of resiliency there. It's not like an amazing super foam really, despite the fact that, it's nitrogen infused and all that, but it is a really good balanced foam for daily training like this. It's a foam I think that will work for lots of different runners. It's not too squishy, reasonably stable, but it is comfortable. Got a bit of bounce there when you pick up the pace. So towards the end of the run yesterday, I picked up the pace a little bit because I had to get home because endless kids parties to get to at the weekend, so I was rushing back for that, and it was fine to do that in the shoe. I do think it's got a lot more potential as a versatile daily trainer than the previous models of the Ghost that I found a bit heavy and dull and dead for me. Like, I didn't really want to use them for anything fast at all, but picking up the pace a little bit in the shoe was fine. So yeah, it was an enjoyable first run all round. I think you are going to have that little differentiation between this and the Glycerin, which is a bit more comfy, a bit nicer feeling underfoot, and actually a similar weight, despite the fact it's got, I think, a bit more foam underfoot. The Ghost, I think, will still suit all the people who liked it in the past, who enjoy the really high drop on the shoe, which is one of the distinctive features it has now on today's market. And I think other people who aren't necessarily fans of the line will like this version more than previous models.
So I just got back from my first run in the Brooks Ghost 16. It was an hour run, pretty easy pace. I think I was averaging kind of 5-10 kind of kilometre kind of mile pace, and then dropping it below that to kind of slightly run a little bit more up tempo in the shoe, because ultimately it is a shoe that is supposed to offer a little bit of versatility. Now, my experience of the Ghost range in the past has been, I know they're solid shoes, I know they're reliable, consistent, comfortable, well protected. I can see why loads of people would run in the shoe and be a good first shoe. I think ultimately, when I've looked at it against other daily trainer shoes, I think there's just been more memorable shoes and shoes that I would instantly grab for over the Ghost. So I was interested to see that Brooks has decided to bring in the DNA Loft V3 foam from the Glycerin, a shoe that is probably my favourite series of shoes in the Brooks range, and brought it into the Ghost. Now, in terms of what it felt like to run in it today, I would say it's definitely instantly feels a lot more memorable than the Ghost shoes that I've run in previously. Now, what I'd say is you definitely do notice that you do sink in a little bit more into this shoe. Now, it's not overly plush, which I think is really important for people who love the Ghost range, but it is definitely a little bit of a softer edge. There's a nice bounce there. I think the rocker is pretty good in here as well too. And I think what's crucial here, I think what maintains that kind of Ghost feel, is that what you're getting in the outsole ultimately. It's quite a lot of rubber here, and I think it almost tempers the ride and stops it from being a little bit too lively. I think if people wanted something that's very, as I said, stable, consistent, smooth, but also very protective as well, and very Ghost-like, I still think you get that. But ultimately, I think having that DNA Loft V3 in there just makes it a more enjoyable feel for me overall in terms of what I felt in that first run. And I think it's a real positive here. I think in terms of what you're getting in the upper, I think all the things you'd want from a Ghost, comfortable, supportive, it's going to protect as well too and give you a fair amount of material there. I think the weight feels generally pretty good for a daily trainer as well. I do think that having that DNA Loft V3 in there is going to make this a shoe that's, I think, going to appeal to a lot more runners as well. Just not, maybe not just for the Ghost kind of fans. I think people may be looking at a daily trainer that's at an affordable price. This feels like a shoe that, I use that word memorable, and it definitely felt a lot memorable in that first run I did compared to my other runs of testing in the previous Ghost shoes. Outsole wise, as I said, there's a lot of rubber here, and I think from a durability point of view, it's going to be very well protected and going to be a shoe that you're going to do a regular amount of running in this shoe. So from that point of view, that's going to be solid. Think grip, traction wise, you know, it's very dry conditions, it's hot today, so no problem that point of view. And I don't think having that extra extra amount of rubber in this outsole has made it a clunky or heavy shoe to run in, which I think is crucial here. So yeah, a very positive, surprising performance in my first run in the Brooks Ghost 16. I'd be interested to see how it handles over some longer distances, over some more regular runs, see how that midsole still holds up over kind of a bit more running. But so far, so good. And yeah, probably the nicest Ghost that I've run in, I think, full stop.
So I'm just back from my first run in the Brooks Ghost 16. It was a really, really easy 4.5 mile recovery run. I ran the Hackney half marathon yesterday and put myself in a big hole after playing football on Saturday as well. So today my body was actually quite broken. Everything was really quite stiff and quite sore. So today I really needed a shoe that was going to look after me and protect me for some very, very shuffly, slow miles. I was doing 10, 11 minute mile pace, really, really steady. And I was a bit worried actually about what the shoes would give me. I needed something that was going to give me cushioning. Now, my first run response to these shoes is that they're really nicely balanced actually. The stepping comfort I thought was really great. There's plenty of flex in the toe box. There's plenty of flex from the uppers as well. You've obviously got big, thick, kind of padded heel collars. Everything holds nicely. And yeah, they were sort of disappearing on the foot, which I really needed today. And that kind of stepping comfort there and that disappearing feel is there in spades. I guess you'd kind of expect that from the Ghost. That's kind of a shoe that you'd want that from, and you're expecting that kind of comfort overall. So when I describe the ride of the shoe, I would say this is nicely balanced actually. The cushioning was there, it's good protection, took away any kind of road impact. I felt very stable in the shoe, I felt very balanced. You know, it's not too sinky, it's not too soft, but also there is a little bit of spring in it, there's a little bit of energy there. I don't know what the weight of the shoe is, I haven't put them on the scales, but they didn't feel too heavy either. Sometimes with more cushion shoes you're going to get things that feel a little bit heavy and cumbersome. I didn't get that off this first run, and actually overall I really they did the job that I needed them to do today. So in its blurb, Brooks describes this shoe as having kind of smooth cushioning, and that is exactly what I found out there. I think it has nice kind of roll, nice to it, nice clip along kind of vibe to the shoe. I didn't feel like I was in a shoe that was aggressive, you know, I didn't feel it was over squidgy and over soft. I can't wait to actually go out and see how it runs when you pick up the pace a little bit in it, because I do think there is going to be a little bit of energy there. I think it's going to be one of those happy shoes that you can go and do like 10 miles where you're going to be running, you know, slower than a marathon pace, but, you know, not kind of really, really ploddy as well. And I think maybe it's going to have fairly good versatility overall.
Okay, so some initial thoughts on my first run in the Brooks Ghost 16. I think first I'll say, if you are a Brooks Ghost fan, I think you'll be happy and not need to be concerned about the changes, because I still do think it feels like a Ghost shoe. But I do think having that change in the midsole and having that foam that I think has been great in the Glycerin and having it in the Ghost makes it a more appealing shoe. I kind of put it up against other kind of daily trainer shoes like the Adidas Supernova Rise, which I've been running in recently. Also the Puma Velocity Nitro 3, obviously that's got that kind of nitrogen infused kind of midsole foam in there as well too. I would say that this compared to Velocity Nitro 3, what I'm seeing so far, I feel like that shoe maybe has a touch more versatility about it, and I still think that would probably be the shoe. If I was looking at this price range where the Brooks Ghost 16 kind of sits, I would probably still be looking at the Velocity Nitro 3. You're getting a great outsole in there, the ride is great, I think it works for slightly more tempo running as well too, and easing off as well. Look at something like the Adidas Supernova Rise, I think there's very similar kind of traits here. I think you're getting a little more padded here. I think maybe getting something a bit more stable and controlled here, but I don't think there's a huge amount between that shoe and this shoe as well. But ultimately, I think the main thing for me is that it's a Ghost shoe that I've liked on that first run, a Ghost shoe that actually I'm looking forward to running a bit more in. And I think it's going to be a Ghost shoe that, or, you know, an iteration of the shoe that I think is not going to put off kind of diehard fans, but also maybe bring in some new fans that maybe think that maybe the Glycerin maybe is a bit too much of a kind of big shoe, want something that kind of has a little bit more, a touch more versatility in it, still likes that kind of Brooks feel of the upper and what it's kind of doing the midsole and the outsole. I feel like that's what you're getting here with the Ghost 16, at least that's what I'm seeing in those kind of, in that initial first run.
Early verdict on the Ghost 16 is it's a successful upgrade. It's one that's a bit overdue. I think this is a phone that Brooks has had available for a while, and they've restricted it to other shoes, and I think they could have put it in the Ghost earlier, because this is not an overwhelming change. I think that will alienate people who've liked the shoe line for a while. I think they will still enjoy the shoe. If you liked previous models of the Ghost, you're just getting a similar feeling, that high drop with a slightly better foam that makes it a lighter shoe, a slightly poppier shoe, and a more versatile one. And therefore, I think it might appeal to some more people who want a high drop shoe, and this is really the standout option in the market. If you're looking for over 10mm of drop as a daily trainer, there's not many of those around now. Looking at more like 10mm of things like the Pegasus or the Velocity Nitro 3, which are both good shoes, but I think the Ghost is now also a very good shoe to consider as well. I'd probably prefer a slightly lower drop myself for a slightly more rockered shoe, but I do think this is a really good option. Looking forward to running in it more, which has not really been the case with previous models of the Ghost. Like, I've got them in, they've been okay, they've been the Ghost. This is, I think, a slightly different Ghost. It's one I'm a bit more excited to use again, and I think it's going to be a more versatile shoe and a more enjoyable shoe all round. So yeah, good first run out in the Ghost 16.
So quick sum up then from that first run. Obviously I've just done 4.5 miles really slow. Much more testing needs to be done before I give any kind of verdict on this shoe. But for that run that I just did, I really needed a shoe to be kind to me, give me a little bit of energy, but also get enough softness to sort of take the edge off. And yeah, have my feet held in comfort. Everything else was hurting so much. I wanted something that was going to bring some comfort to the run, but not be kind of too ponderous and too saggy and soggy. And actually this shoe has that. It's very smooth. There's a good roll to it. There's a good sort of clip along vibe. It's a little bit of spring into that sort of DNA Loft midsole. The stack was just about right. It's not overdone. The shoe, I think, feels sort of nicely balanced in terms of weight on the foot. And yeah, I'm excited to get out and do more miles in it. I don't think this is a shoe that's going to blow anyone away by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's going to be, you know, at the moment my instinct is this is a very sort of competent shoe that is going to be one of those sort of shoes that be happy for, you know, your slower to mid-level pace runs. Maybe you'll be able to do a few sort of slightly faster than that, and it's going to be one that, you know, if you're going to go and do a long run with your head up, it's going to be one of those shoes that, yeah, you'd be happy for that.
Okay, so there you have some initial running thoughts on the Brooks Ghost 16. Obviously, plenty more testing to do before we go to a full multi-tester review. Now, in the meantime, if you've got any questions about the shoe or other shoes you'd like to see it compared to, do let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for next run testers video.